Good afternoon, class. So, in today's botany lecture, we will going to see that how plant do the growth and developmental process. So, as in the human, we see from a baby to an adult to a fully grown man, there are so many developmental phases. So, same thing happen inside the plant also. Plant also have their growth pattern, their developmental phases, and there are several characteristic features which are present during the whole growth of the plants, and also there are a lot of factors which are going to influence the plant growth. So, in this lecture, we have to see how the plant growth occurs and also in relevance with what kind of factors which are going to help plant to grow faster and develop in a healthier way. Let's begin with the introduction and overview part. So, growth. This is a manifestation of life. So, basically, if there is no growth, there is no life. So, that is a very important and fundamental feature of a life. All organisms, the simplest as well as the most intricate, or slowly changing the whole time they are alive. So, as we think like after getting in our 30s and 40s or 50s, we do not grow. We grow in a developmental phases. Maybe a growth process that a bit slower as comparison to the early stages, but each and every living organism present on this earth, they grow each and every minute in their own way. So they transform materials more to themselves. So basically, in this whole pattern of the growth, they are doing something from in the meaning of transforming themselves. So we will going to see how plants can grow and transform themselves too. So from such ingredients, like we are going to need some ingredients for the developmental processes, like ingredient like minerals, protein, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, and hormones. So you all know that in our human body, that we need all these kind of nutrients to grow and develop in a healthy way. So same as all other living organisms. They also need these kind of nutrients to grow faster and to grow in a healthy process, or you can say their developmental process need all these things. So organism from additional to the protoplasm. So basically, these things, these nutrients, they are a basic need of every organism along with the additional protoplasm. Every cell, whenever we talk about the cell, the protoplasm, or you can say the plasma, which have a life inside it, that is a very important part of any kind of development. So the formation of protoplasm is called the assimilation. So basically all the nutrient they going to add inside the protoplasm initiate our growth, very uniformly work in the developmental process. So all these nutrient going to add up in our protoplasm and working for our development. That process is known as assimilation. You can see here some growth stages of the plant, like a very primitive stage when plant is in the form of seed. Okay, that sprouting when the root came out from a seed. That process, even we eat sprouts. Okay, so sprouting, the most we can say the proteinous thing at that time, they are having the most of the nutrient at their extreme conditions, because they need to do meristematic growth. A huge meristematic growth need a lot of nutrients. So that's why at the time of germination or at the time of sprouting in the plant, they need a abundant kind of nutrient which they got from the soil. And sometime, if the soil do not as fertile as it should be, then we have to add some fertilizer additionally to grow the plant. These days, in like agricultural farms, cropping, or even the plants which we grow at our own home, the soil need basically kind of fertilizers. And you can say this is the truth of the modern world. that we are making progressive industries, or we are having all the modern technology we have today, but the thing which we are leaving behind, this is our environment. And this is very important to know that not all the future you was thinking about getting from the technologies they are going to give you all the things which you require. These things, most of the things, just yeah, I know technology changes, they all require, but not at the cost of our environment. So basically, whenever you see some of the people are aware about it and they are working on the environment, so this is a very good thing, as you all are a student and you are learning and just entering a new era of your life. So you needed to be think in this way also, making new technologies, knowing about new technologies, growing in a technology. You cannot forget that basic your roots are in the environment. And if plants get to forget about roots, you will never going to get any kind of food material, because we are heterotrophs, they are not. So we are dependent on the food material they provide us, but they are independent. They don't need us, but we need them. So when we are making this whole technological aspect, just don't forget about that the things which relies that inside the plants. So after this, when the plant grows, like your topic, so when the plant grow, this sprouting that will begin in the seedling. So seedling is a process when they are having this leafy structure on this appearance. You can see the leafy structure grown in the seedling. That depend on the leafy structure that plant can be dicot or monocotyledon. Now we are going to see the vegetative structure. So vegetative structure in which nitrogen is most important for plant when their energy is directed into the growing stem and foliage. So there are two type of phases. We are going to study each and every step in our whole lecture. But for the beginners, like they plants have to go through two phases. One is the vegetative phase, and second one is the reproductive phase. So in the plant vegetative phase, plant basically growing themselves or making themselves to be capable of having reproduction. After the vegetative reproduction, the thing we are going to get here, that is by the reproduction or the multiplication of the plant, that depend on the process of reproduction. So here we will going to see the several process which going to add on in the reproductive manner, like the budding, flowering, and ripening. So these are the zone of a reproductive organ. Sprouting, seedling, and vegetative growth, they come under the phase of the vegetative reproduction. And after, when the bud come, when a first meiosis happen in the sexual reproduction, the plant just entered from the sporophytic stage to the gametophytic stage. Maybe some people find this word a little rustic, but if you wanted to know more about it, you can see the earlier lectures in which we talk about the whole reproduction pattern on the plants. A large part of the food which a plant manufacture is used as a source of energy. So the most important thing for us, the manufacture or the product of the plant, which we can got in the form of fruits, and they give us the energy. Food may be consumed soon after it produced, or it may be stored or used as a source of energy for the plant or its offspring, weeks, months, or even year later. So inside the plant, even they also have needed to consume the food which they make by the process of photosynthesis. So basically, sometimes that food which has been made inside the plant just utilized at the time of, after just at its form, they can be utilized just after it. But sometimes they can also store it inside the plant for like some of the plant stop their activities in an unfavorable condition. So maybe there can be a kind of unfavorable condition, and at that time plant just stop doing working. So they need some storage thing, like in our whole lockdown process. If we do not store anything, and if we didn't store our money for the time period like this, we cannot have the luxury to even have the fruit. And a normal life. So basically, this the same thing. Storage is important, and most of the plant think about it. Whenever they made food, they just store it for the unfavorable conditions. A healthy plant, however, manufactures more food than is necessary to maintain the activity of its own substance or own living thing. Actually, plant made the food more than they need, because they also the food which has been made by plant, they use it to, of course they need to live a life, so that's why they are using that. But same time, they are giving that food to us also by using it. Otherwise, if plant do not produce a food more than their necessity, then we will no longer to have a food to eat. So that's why we should be thankful to the plant that they are making food for us too. Not they are not just think about their self. They are also think about the mankind. They also think about the ecology that built together them. So in its tissue, producing new protoplasm and new cell wall, thus promoting the growth of the plant body. So whole process that is required to having a healthy growth inside the plant. Now, the growth represent the excess of constructive over destructive metabolism. So, basically, when we are talking about the growth, this is a positive word. So, positive like the excess of the construction, means building something, making something, over the destructive metabolism. Destruction is very less if, like, we are going to compare the construction and destruction metabolism in the process of growth, then there will be 90 to 10 ratio. 90% is a construction over the 10% of the destructive metabolism. Here, growth involves an irreversible increase in size, which is usually but not necessarily accompanied by an increase in dry weight. Okay, so what happens when the growth involves? They are involving in increasing in the size. Okay, which is usually but not necessarily accompanied by the increase in dry weight. Sometimes when we talk about the growth having inside a plant, maybe they can increase in the length, but same time they cannot increase in the dry weight also. So that's why that not the same thing, like if you're talking the growth increasing, so same time maybe they cannot increase the weight also. Fresh weight can be differ, but dry weight cannot be different. The basic process of growth is the production of new protoplasm. So the major phenomena behind all the growth process inside anything, that is the production of new protoplasm. All their matter that they have to make new protoplasm. This is clearly evident in the region of active cell division, and whenever the active cell division happen, so means when the cell divides, they make one cell to two, two to four, four to eight. So at that time, what happens? Division inside the protoplasm, that is a major contribution of the growth. The next stage in growth is increase in plant size. The very next stage when the growth happens, what they do, their fundamental process is to increase the plant size, which is a result of absorption of water and the consequent stretching of the tissue, a process which is a strict sense is not growth at all, since it involves little or no increase in the characteristic material of the plant itself. So mostly the whole process, how the growth is stimulate, how the growth happen inside the plant body, they also need several things to maintain their metabolism, to maintain their growth process. So basically this whole process that has need of absorption of adequate amount of the water and other minerals, and consequent stretching of the tissue, that is also required, because if there is look like there will be no more tissue cell division, then plant will be think about that they do not need any kind of more minerals or water, so that cannot be happen. They need a proper amount of the things to continue their growth. The third and the last stage in growth involve the empty entry of the plenty of building material, chiefly carbohydrate, into the expanded young tissues. So mostly the third stage, or in the third stage of the growth inside the plant, what happened? They are going to make the entry of the large component that are the carbohydrates. So this result is an increase in the dry weight but no visible increase in the external size of the plant. So this time, when they are going to have a lot of carbohydrate or the nutrient material from the soil, at that time maybe that cannot be seen as in the in its external size growth, but at that time what they are making at that time the particular function of the plant inside the growth is to increasing the dry weight. Growth is, however, more than just an increasing amount of the plant. So you cannot just. Most of the people think that the growth is just increasing the length and breadth of the plant. That is not just wrong. Even how they can develop their internal structure, being rather inside the growth, that is also very important. Differential growth of the plant part result in the characteristic shape. Basically, differential growth of the plant, they are going to have different kind of the shape inside the plant. That is a process of differentiation we are going to see next. How each plant species have a distinct form development by the same growth process. Means like the same growth process is applied to each and every species. But how they form the distinctive forms means how they can be formed, like how they know that this thing has to be going divide into the root, this thing had to go to form the leaf. How they know that? So basically, this process that is called the differentiation. We will see the differentiation here. Just see some canola growth stages. We take a canola plant here and show you that how beautifully they are growing from just a cotyledon to a ripening, the maturity to the old age. Cotyledons grow from here, two leaves. Okay, that two leaves means that plant has to be dicotyledon. Four leaves. Then later, starting that didn't matter at all. So there will be many more species, but in a starting, if the cotyledon have two leaves, they will be the dicotyledon. After they are developing and developing, and rosette-like appearance will be look like as a canola have a rosette appearance, like a rosette appearance is like a embedded form at the bottom and just the flawless opening of the leaves around the circle type nature. Blotting blotting they will be going I'm sorry bolting they will be going to have starting in the reproductive phase. After that they are going to have this flowering stage. Flower will come, flower will happen, then after the pollination happens, so the podding will be start of fruit formation, that is called podding here. And after the podding, when they get mature, the process under the ripening, they get maturity, and we can go the final product of normal or we can say our canola can be fully developed in this manner. Okay. Now the differentiation process. So what happens when the differentiation occurs inside the plant body? So differentiation can be recognized at the cell level, tissue level, organ level, and at the level of organism. You all know the cells are the basic functional and fundamental unit of our organism. So everything just has to be start with the cell level. Cell combined and form into the tissue. Tissue will be going to combine and form in an organ. Organ will be combined and form and level of organism. So this is a process that has to be going steps. So when the cell at the cell level, when the differentiation happens or recognized at the cell level, so we will be going to see each and every level how differentiation going to work. It becomes more obvious at the level of organ and organism. For instance, if we consider flower as an organ of plant, it bears sepals for photosynthesis and protection of inner floral part. Beautiful colored petals to attract insect for cross pollination. Stamen for producing male gamete and the carpel for bearing the ovule, which after fertilized produce seeds. So basically, in this, they are telling you that that part of a flower if we see here. At the time of tissue formation, cell formation, we cannot be able to see their differentiation because they are present inner side in the body. But at the time of organ or at the time of organogenesis, we can be able to see how they can be different from each other and how different function they are performing here. So in this scenario we are taking example of flower, and in the flower we know that there are sepals. Okay, sepals. What the sepal do? They do the photosynthesis and they do the protection. Seeing just above the sepals, we are having the florals, so beautiful colored petals present there just to attract insects so they can do the pollination process. So now the second unit, they are completely, they look completely different, they do completely different. Their function is different, their color is different. How this thing can happen if they are present in a same plant and developing from the same growth rate? How these things can be happen? So, and the third thing, then, the stamens, they are producing even male gametes. And the carpel, they are producing ovule, the female gamete. And after the fertilization, they are going to make seed from it. So, the main point of view to understand here that everything that has been developed from bio one single cell and now performing different kind of structure and function, how they can happen. So, considering an angiosperm as an organism, we observe that possible the route for adaptation of water and mineral and fixation in the soil. The trunk and the stem branches bear level of the photosynthesis. Roots and flower, the fruits are bearing the seed which on the germination, each and every one. So basically, this whole point is also telling you the same thing that the things which can be possessed by the same thing, how they performing differently. Basically, the thing behind the development, that is a different scenario here. So the main reason behind all the differences, this is called differentiation. Like a particular cell, they have the genetic material inside it. Okay, genetic material, you all know the genetic material, that is the DNA and RNA. DNA are responsible for coding each and every character of a particular cell. So now, when the division happens on the basis of functional analysis, two type of division happen inside the plant. One type of division that just for the meristematic cell growth, or you can say just for increasing the number. But second kind of division happens there just for on the functional basis. Means now they can be dividing based on different functions. That can be called the differentiation. And that's why all these parts present inside the plant, they are forced to do a new structure and new function different from their fellow organ. So that's why this whole thing happened because of the differentiation allow them to do that. Or you can say, whenever someone asks what is differentiation, so the division that based on the function, not just based on the shape and size, that is based on the different aspect, the functionology, the practicology inside the plant, that division, that is called as differentiation. Now what is a new term here, that is called development. You also seen that growth and development is a different thing. Growth is something which happen like very fastly at the time of when we initiating something like the seedling effect or the sprouting effect or germination. At that time, growth is very high. But developmental process is like whenever till your death, development happens almost at the same date. That differ at some places of your life, but still there are a process of the development that it goes to the death process, or you can say it will continue till your death comes to you. So development implies a whole sequence of the qualitative changes that a plant undergoes from its zygote stage to its death stage. Okay, so growth is dealing with the whole quantitative features, quantity and quality. If we are differentiating here, the quantity and quality. Quantity is dealing with the growth, quality is dealing with the development. So here, the whole process of development that is based on the qualitative structure of a plant. So the developmental changes may be gradual or abrupt, but the example of certain abrupt changes are germination, flowering, senescence means aging to the dead. So these things, they have different changes bring by those into the a life of plant, from the germination to the flowering to the senescence. So these are the parameters that has to be deal with at each and every step by the process of development. Slow developmental changes include formation and maturation of tissue formation, or formation of vegetative and floral buds, and formation of reproductive organ. So these are the changes which happens at a very slow rate, like maturation of the tissue. Tissue has been formed under the process of growth, but now they have to develop. Like in if we take the example, we got the age of like the 18, 20, 25, but that was our growth and we grow that growth. But the developmental process is whole inner version of ourselves. Growth is just outer, like we tall, we grow into the bigger one. But the developmental process need time. That is a slow process, and that is based on our qualities. Quantitative analysis deal with the growth, but the qualitative analysis deal with the development. That's why some people tell some people that like you just grow, you didn't develop. So that's why this is different from the growth. Unlike growth, development is a qualitative change. I told you right now. So it cannot be measured in the quantitative terms. Like we cannot measure the developmental process on the basis of how the height or the length or the breadth or the diameter. We can just be analyze it by viewing it, taking time. That process just cannot be just measured on the quantitative purpose, but it can be seen in the quality, in the qualitative analysis. So how we can do the qualitative analysis and do is plant is developing or not. So, either described or illustrated with the help of photographs and drawing. Development includes growth, division, enlargement, differentiation, everything. Okay, growth does not involve development, but development involves the growth. Development involves all the things happen inside the plant body, from the cell division to their enlargement to their differentiation, and these all are the parameter that include development in them. Even the morphogenesis, maturation, senescence, till the death, every process that has to be come through under the development. The growth cycle of annual monocarpic flowering plants begin with the fertilized egg, the zygote. Okay, so every annual monocarpic or flowering plant they start their life cycle being a zygote. You all know that. The zygote develop into embryo following cell division and differentiation. So when a zygote convert into the embryo, they needed to be follow both the things. They had to be follow the divisions and they had to be follow the differentiation to make up to the embryonal stage. The embryo is enclosed within the seed where it undergoes a period of inactivity that is called dormancy. So at that time, they just do not just suppress all the metabolic activities for till the time of germination. The resting embryo resume growth during the germination of seed and develop into the seedling. So when we they got the favorable condition, they got everything whatever they want for the germination. That they start the germination and start their all metabolic activity, getting favorable condition. The seedling grows in a vegetative plant, like we just seen in the diagram here. That seedling that always go do this. This is a vegetative phase. So seedling has to follow the vegetative phase. That is their destiny. Seedling grows into a vegetative plant. After some period of vegetative growth, the plant undergoes maturation and enters the reproductive phase. So always remember plant have to go to the vegetative phase, then only they can enter to the reproductive phase. It develops fruit and flower in the reproductive phase, the latter containing seeds, and that will be continue till the seed production. Finally, session set in the session stage, leading to the death of the plant. And after doing all the thing necessary, after that plant has to lead to the death. This is the destiny of the plant, and they have to go through with all the process to do that. In unicellular organism, this was the talk all about the multicellular organism. What happened inside the unicellular, the organism will just have the one single cell. Growth consists of an increase in the size or volume. So first the thing they have to do, they just enlarge their size volume. This increase is due to the synthesis of new protoplasm. So the new protoplasm that is happening at the time of growth and developmental phases. So they just do enlargement and become adult. Cell division in unicellular organism result in their multiplication or reproduction. So if we see how they can reproduce, so at the time of reproduction, they just going to complete their cycle and entering into the new cycle, because in the unicellular, mostly a cell is fully, fully devoted in the multiplication and reproduction, and they convert their whole contingency. So that's why that cell has no longer be there if the reproduction happen in them. So that's why unicellular have a very, you can say, very limited kind of growth and developmental process in them. Now, the growth region in the animal and plants. Now, we will be going to see that we already studied about the growth, we studied about the differentiation, and we studied about the developmental process. Now we are going to see in what area of the animal and plant this growth region began. So, cell division and differentiation, important aspect of growth and development in both animal and plants. So, they are not just related to the one thing; they are basically applicable for both the things, even for the animals and even for the plants. In mammal, the growth is diffuse and it is very difficult to specify the region where the growth occurs. In animals, the growth of the embryo is completed quite early, although the mature size may be gained at a specific period. So, in mammals, actually, or in animals, that after the zygote form, they just start rapid divisions. And I thought, and even the most of the scientists thought, this is the region where the growth starts. Growth start from a very first primitive division that take place just after the zygote formation. So this was a place where the growth forming, or I personally think that the growth region in animal and plant started just after having the zygote division. In plant, the growth may be diffuse and localized. Diffuse growth occurs in lower forms of life, like the filamentous alga. So basically, we are talking about the thing which, like the unicellular and slightly multicellular. Here, each cell of the multicellular plant body can divide and enlarge. In the small plant, it happen. Just every cell or every small singular cell can be multiply, or sometimes they just divide and grow. But in higher plant, especially the trees, they are built up in the modular fashion. So, modular fashion, their development is relatively open ended and their structure never completed. So, these things they need time to do their growth process. We already studied about the theories related to the apical meristem and apical meristem of root, apical meristem of shoot. So, you can relate these theory for the growth region. Now we will going to see the phases of the plant growth, what kind of phases plant needed to be go through. The phase of the cell division, that is called the formative phase, because in this the cell, or you can say plant is starting form there, like we are making a building. So the we start filling the base part, so that is the formative part when something start to form. Cell enlargement and cell differentiation, that is the second process. Third process, cell differentiation or cell maturation. So first division happen, second enlargement happen, third differentiation happen, and fourth in my case, cell maturation. So these are the four following steps which can we go through towards the growth component or growth phases of the plant. You can also see This is the formative phase, zone of cell formation. This is elongation. You can see zone of elongation. This is the zone of differentiation, and this is the zone of maturation, when the lumen can form. So you can easily see how the region of phase of growth in root mark. So zone of formation to the elongation to the differentiation to the maturation. And these things are pretty needed for making anything to be susceptible for life. So cell division, that is, we already studied about that cell division process, that very important for the making new cell and for the making the formative phase. Now cell division happens inside when the organism growing to start developing the mitosis kind of division taking place. So, what happened in the mitosis? The division occurs in the same number of the chromosomes. Okay, so when the two daughter cells will be forming by the process of mitosis, they will be having the equal number of chromosomes. It is quantitative as well as qualitative division that is generally completed in two stages. So the qualitative means how quantitative that they are producing more number of the cells. How it is qualitative that they have to perform two qualitative phases for performing the cell division. One is a karyokinesis that is all about the division of nucleus, and second one that is the cytokinesis that is all about the division in the cytoplasm. So these two steps they has to be followed for the completion of cell division process. During this mitosis, if we see a little detail in the process of mitosis, cell passes through four phases. The very first phase, that is a prophase, in which cell start or preparing for to that cell division. So that is a prophase. And after that, the metaphase, when chromosome aligned at the center for the division. Anaphase is starting the division. Telophase, the ending phase in the division. So these four steps they are very necessary for having a mitosis kind of division, and this will give us to the equal distribution of genetic material. So like whatever the daughter cell will be going to form here, they will be having the same genetic material as their parents have. In higher plants, cell division continuously occur in the meristematic region, such as apical meristem. So basically, this cell division continuation, this is called the meristematic zone, or the cell which are dividing themselves inside that, they are called the meristematic cell. They are rapidly dividing them and making a zone of fulfillment, and that is the phase of the cell. That is the phase of the plant enlargement, you can say. Now, the phase of cell enlargement. So, the cell enlargement plays an important role in contributing the size of the tissue and organ. So, here what happened? We will going to contribute for making a bigger size of tissue and organ. The enlargement occurs by synthesizing protoplasm, absorbing water, developing vacuoles, adding new cell wall, material to the stretched, thin elastic walls to make them slightly thicker and permanent. So, in this in this whole process of the cell enlargement, what the things we are needed? We are needed all these things. Like we have to make more protoplasm, and how we can make the more protoplasm in this we are going to absorb more water. We have to, if we wanted to store something, we need more vacuoles because vacuoles function is to storage. Cell wall, because rigidity should be there. If we are enlarging, our wall should be strong. So that's why the cell material, which is having a little elasticity and rigidity, both the things has to be present in the cell wall. Elasticity to make balance, it should not be burst out when the internal material get enlarged. Cell wall has to be intact; they cannot burst out. So that's why elasticity will be there, and also some permanent thickening of the cell that is also needed in the cell enlargement. So In this way, cell enlarge may be linear or in all directions. So in this, after getting all these components, cell can be enlarged in the all direction. After the cell direction, we will be having the phases for the cell differentiation or cell maturation. So what happened during the cell differentiation? This is the last phase, and basically, in this, enlarged cell eventually acquire a specific size and form according to their location and role following biochemical, physiochemical, morphological changes. So, this is a turning point. Every cell in the plant they are having inside the enlargement joint. But now, this is the time they needed to be specified. Now the work done has to be distributed. Now they will the plant going to tell them what function you are to, what for the what function you are present here. What are your motive? What are your goals? So at that time, in this differentiation process, they are going to have their roles to play inside the plant. Their biochemical, their physiological, their morphological changes, they will be specialized. They will be unique to particular cell. So the cell undergoes specialization and transformation. So this is the phase where cell got their role, their job to play inside the body. As a result, various kind of cell get differentiated. These differentiated cell form different kind of simple and complex tissue. Now, if the differentiation happen, they will be going to form different kind of tissue formation. Some can get to be the simple kind of tissue. Some can have the complex tissue, and simple tissue have their own role to play. Complex tissue have their own things to do. Complex tissue majorly involves xylem phloem inside the plant body. If we are talking about the simple tissue, parenchyma, sclerenchyma, and collenchyma can go with it. So these are the tissue with are having the different roles to play inside the plant. Experiments to study phases of grow. We already see the experiment based on canola. So you can see how the perfect phases of the growth when you just can grow a plant. Sometimes you can do this in vivo and normal in your pot, and you can just see that how the root formation take place, how the shoot formation doing inside the dam, and the petri plates you can grow a plant, and after having their root growth, you can put them into the pot. So there are a lot of experiments you can perform to see the phases of growth. Now here are some factors that going to affect the plant growth. External factors. Regardless the habitat in which a plant is growing, it is continuously subjected to the variability of a complex set of environmental factors. Maybe we know that this particular kind of habitat is suitable for this kind of plant, but still, several other factors they are going to play an important role on the development of the plant. And what are these environmental factors? They can be temperature, light, oxygen, water, and nutrients. They are going to play an important role in the whole developmental process of plant. Temperature is very important. For an optimum temperature, plant can grow into their enlargement process, and this temperature need that can be vary species to species. Some species they can be grow in winter, so they need very low temperature, but some need a very high temperature. So basically, temperature is needed. It can be the low temperature, it can be the high temperature, but temperature is the ultimate source that can make many more functions inside the plant. Like they are the main source in one of the main source which can stimulate the growth and developmental process inside the plant. Light, you all know how light is important. Light is a main thing for the survival or all the physiological process inside the plant. Major process is the photosynthesis. That is totally rely on the light. So that is the thing which we cannot ignore. So if the light is low, photosynthetic rate will be low, and the less food will be gone to the plant, and that maybe they can affect their growth pattern, their developmental pattern. So optimum amount of light is important for growing of a normal plant. Also, not only the photosynthesis, some other thing is also require the light, like the formation of anthocyanin, temperature of aerial organs, absorption of minerals, permeability, rate of transpiration, streaming of protoplasm. So these are the very important physiological function that has been performed by the plant. So if light is not there, so these all process can be get affected. So that's why a optimum amount of light is needed. Not a very way more light. We don't. I'm not talking about that. Uh, Beyond the optimization, we cannot do that, but not the lower one. So that just had to be, just it had to be like in what condition and what amount they needed. It should be there. Intensity of light. Now this is a little variant, or you can say a little different from having the light. Intensity, you can measure it like winter also have sun and summers also have sun. Both the time we have the sun in the sky. But what happened in the winter, we do not feel their temperature at that level as we feel in summers. So this thing, that is called intensity of light. Sometimes intensity of light have a very great influence on the plant growth. And even if the intensity of the light is very weak, plant cannot grow in a adequate manner. And also it is if that is very high, then also plant cannot be grow. So basically light or intensity of the light, they should be on a measurable scale on the plant can be grow healthily. Quality of light, the same thing that the intensity of light, like the quality of light means that has to be not very much UV radiation should be there. Normal full visible spectral light should be there. So full spectrum of visible light that is required for the growth of plant. You cannot provide the plant as a UV light; they will going to fall off. Oxygen supply, that is also very important. Plant is a vital things, or all the things which are living, they need oxygen to their normal growth. So oxygen supply, that is very important. Every part of the plant, maybe they provide us oxygen as a byproduct, but they also need oxygen for their respiration process. Water, we all know water is how water is important. Without water, we cannot do anything. Majorly, the adequate amount of the water supply is very important for plant to do all their characteristics. Oxygen, water, light, these are like the fundamental thing. Without these things, plant cannot survive. And these things, plant mostly get from soil, but sometimes we artificially give them by the process of irrigation. Soil nutrients, these are also very important because just not the water that is plant get it by the soil, but also some other nutrient which help to plant to grow and develop. So for growing on the in a better growth manner or in the developmental phase, we need the macro and micro molecules in the amount, like micromolecules we need it in a small amount. Macromolecules, we need them in a little, quite more amount. But this depend on the soil or also on the plant that what kind of nutrients they needed for their growth and development. These are some internal factors like the growth regulators. So like we have hormones inside our body. So also the plant also have hormones inside their body. So these are the hormones which regulate, like the auxin, gibberellin, cytokinin. They regulate most of the functions inside the plant body. CN, carbon and nitrogen ratio, that is also very important for even their vegetative growth, their fruiting. These two things is very required. Phenotype and genetic factor, that is also a very core factor that rely on the developmental process inside the plant is everything that has to be come from our genes. Genes have a major role to play because genes are the one which is a commanding officer inside the plant body. They needed to do the command for what kind of codes will be formed, and on the basis of these codes, phenotypic thing will be shown. So that's why genetic and genetic factor is important. So this was all about the plant growth and developmental process. I think you all got a very clear view that how plant grows and what are the factors which are required for developing and growing the plant. Still, if you have any confusion, you can go through with these references. They will clear your doubts more. And still, if you have something to ask, you can come to ask them. Thank you.